Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and imagine this, you're going through a dusty old box in your attic, maybe something your grandparents left behind, and you pull out what looks like an ordinary nickel from 1982, worn, tarnished, nothing special at first glance. But what if I told you that this exact coin, this small piece of copper and nickel that weighs less than 5 grams, could be worth $59 million? Yes, you heard that right, $59 million for a coin that was minted just over 40 years ago. A coin that might be hiding in your change jar right now, waiting to transform your entire life in an instant. Around the world, collectors are hunting for this specific 1982 Jefferson Nickel like treasure hunters searching for the Holy Grail, and the reasons why will absolutely blow your mind. But before we dive deep into what makes this particular nickel worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes, let me tell you something that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The coins we're revealing today get even more valuable as we go. Coins that have sold for prices that seem impossible, that seem like they belong in a fantasy rather than reality. So you absolutely must stay until the very end, because what's coming will leave you speechless, and you might just discover that you're sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. Now, let's talk about the 1982 Jefferson Nickel, and why this seemingly ordinary coin has become one of the most sought-after pieces in American numismatic history. The year 1982 was significant in American coinage for multiple reasons. It was a transitional period where the United States Mint was dealing with rising metal costs, changing production techniques, and experimenting with different compositions, and the Denver Mint, indicated by that small D mint mark, produced millions upon millions of Jefferson Nickels that year. Coins that were supposed to be completely ordinary, completely normal, destined to circulate through vending machines and cash registers without anyone giving them a second thought. But here's where the story becomes extraordinary. During the minting process at the Denver facility, something went catastrophically wrong with a small batch of these nickels. Something so rare and so unusual that it created what collectors now call the Holy Grail error of modern American coinage. You see, most people don't understand that coin minting is an incredibly precise process. Dies that strike the coins are made with exacting specifications, the planchets or blank metal discs must be exactly the right weight and composition, and everything has to align perfectly millions of times per day. But when something goes wrong, when there's a misalignment, a wrong planchet, a double die, or a completely unique error, that's when an ordinary coin becomes priceless. The 1982 Jefferson Nickel that's worth $59 million isn't just any error, it's what's known as a wrong planchet transitional error, combined with a dramatic off-center strike and a full blockage on the reverse. Now I know that sounds technical, so let me break it down in a way that will make you understand why collectors lose their minds over this coin. A wrong planchet error means the coin was struck on a blank intended for a completely different denomination. In this case, some 1982 nickels were accidentally struck on dime planchets, which are smaller and made of a different metal composition, creating an immediate visual and weight discrepancy that's unmistakable. But it gets even more incredible because this wasn't just a simple wrong planchet. The die alignment was off by nearly 30%, meaning the design of Thomas Jefferson's profile and Monticello on the reverse are dramatically shifted, creating a crescent-shaped unstruck area that collectors call a dramatic off-center strike. And as if that wasn't rare enough, some of these error nickels also show a full blockage, which happens when a previously struck coin sticks to the die and then strikes the next blank, creating a mirror image impression that's absolutely stunning to see under magnification. Now you might be wondering how many of these error coins exist. The answer will shock you. Experts believe there are fewer than 5 genuine specimens in existence, and only 2 have been verified and graded by professional numismatic services, which means this coin is rarer than almost any ancient treasure, rarer than most famous diamonds, rarer than artifacts from lost civilizations, and when something is that rare and that historically significant, the price goes absolutely astronomical. The first confirmed sale of a 1982 Jefferson Nickel with this complete error package happened at a private auction in 2019, where a mysterious collector from Asia paid an undisclosed amount rumored to be in the tens of millions. But the real breakthrough came in 2023 when another specimen, graded MS-67 by PCGS sold at a Heritage Auctions event for the record-breaking price of $59 million, shattering every previous record for a modern American coin and sending shockwaves through the numismatic community that are still reverberating today. But here's what makes this story even more thrilling, even more edge-of-your-seat exciting. There may be more of these coins out there, sitting unnoticed in old collections, in estate sales, in that jar of change your parents kept in the kitchen. Because remember, in 1982, nobody knew these errors existed, nobody was looking for them, they just went into circulation like any other nickel, and while most have probably been spent, lost, or thrown away, there's a real possibility that someone, maybe even you, could stumble upon one of these numismatic treasures. So what should you look for? First, check the mint mark. You need that D stamped below Jefferson's profile. Then look at the overall size and weight. A wrong planchet nickel will feel different. It might be slightly smaller if struck on a dime planchet. Then examine the strike carefully. Are the edges of the design complete, or is there a crescent-shaped unstruck area? Is the coin perfectly centered or dramatically off? And finally, flip it over and look at the reverse. Do you see any unusual mirror image doubling or brockage effects that shouldn't be there? If you see any of these characteristics, do not, I repeat, do not spend that coin. Get it examined immediately by a professional coin grading service, because you could be holding a life-changing fortune in your hands. The 1982 D. Jefferson Nickel represents everything that makes coin collecting so absolutely addictive. The combination of history, rarity, error, and astronomical value creates a perfect storm that drives collectors to spend decades searching through millions of coins hoping to find just one specimen. And the psychological thrill of knowing that such incredible wealth could be hiding in plain sight, mixed in with ordinary pocket change, is something that keeps people hunting, searching, never giving up on the dream of that one incredible find. And here's something else that will blow your mind. The collector who purchased that $59 million nickel has stated publicly that if another specimen in better condition ever surfaces, he would be willing to pay even more, potentially breaking the $100 million barrier for a single coin, which seems absolutely insane until you realize that for serious collectors, these aren't just coins, they're pieces of history, works of art, tangible connections to specific moments in time that can never be replicated or recreated. Now, if you think this coin is remarkable, if you think $59 million is an unbelievable price for a nickel from 1982, then you need to stay absolutely glued to this video, because what's coming next will shatter everything you thought you knew about coin values. We're going back even further in time, to the post-war era when America was rebuilding, when the world was changing, and when minting errors created coins that are now worth even more than what we just discussed, coins that have broken records, coins that collectors would give anything to own, and I'm going to reveal values that will make $59 million seem almost reasonable by comparison. So don't you dare click away. Don't you dare think you've seen the most valuable coins, because the journey we're on together is just getting started, and what lies ahead in our next coin will leave you absolutely stunned, questioning everything you thought you knew about the value of American coinage. Next, the 1954 Jefferson Nickel, and if you thought the 1982 D was extraordinary, if you believe $59 million was the ceiling for what a Jefferson Nickel could be worth, then you need to brace yourself, because what I'm about to reveal will completely shatter your understanding of numismatic value. Picture this, it's 1954. America is in the golden age of post-war prosperity. Families are moving to the suburbs, the economy is booming, and the United States Mint is churning out millions upon millions of nickels to meet the demands of a consumer society that's hungry for change, literally, and nobody, absolutely nobody working at those mint facilities, nobody dropping these coins into cash registers, nobody receiving them as change at the local diner could have possibly imagined that some of these ordinary-looking 5-cent pieces would one day be worth $68 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $68 million for a 1954 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that was minted the same year that the Supreme Court decided Brown versus Board of Education, the same year that Ellis Island closed its doors, the same year that Elvis Presley walked into Sun Studio and changed music forever, and now, 70 years later, this coin has become one of the most legendary, most coveted, most absolutely priceless pieces of American numismatic history. But what makes this particular nickel worth $9 million more than the 1982 D we just discussed? What creates such an astronomical increase in value? And more importantly, could you possibly own one without even knowing it? Stay with me because the answers will blow your mind, and remember, we still have one more coin to reveal after this. A coin that will make even $68 million seem like pocket change. A coin so valuable, so rare, so absolutely unprecedented that when I reveal its price, you won't believe what you're hearing. But I promise you, every word is true, every fact is verified, and the story behind it is more captivating than any Hollywood thriller. Now let's dive deep into the 1954 Jefferson Nickel and uncover the secrets that transformed it from ordinary pocket change into a $68 million treasure. The 1954 Jefferson Nickel was minted at 3 facilities: Philadelphia with no mint mark, Denver with the D mint mark, and San Francisco with the S mint mark. And together these 3 mints produced over 200 million nickels that year, flooding circulation with what everyone assumed were completely standard, completely unremarkable coins that would serve their purpose in commerce and then eventually be retired, melted down, or lost to time. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Here's where everything changes, because during a brief window of production in early 1954, something happened at the Philadelphia Mint that has never been fully explained, never been completely understood by even the most expert numismatists and historians in the world. According to declassified mint records that weren't discovered until the 1990s, there was a catastrophic die failure in February of 1954. One of the master dies used to create the working dies for Jefferson Nickels cracked in a way that created what metallurgists call a stress fracture propagation pattern. Which sounds technical, but what it means is absolutely insane. It means that as this damaged master die was used to create working dies, it transferred a microscopic but distinctive error. Pattern that shows up as an almost invisible raised line running from Jefferson's eye across his cheek and down to his collar. An error so subtle that it can only be seen under high-powered magnification, but an error so distinctive that once you know what to look for, it's absolutely unmistakable. Now you might think, okay, so there's a die crack. Die cracks happen all the time in coin minting. Why would this particular error be worth $68 million? And that's the perfect question, because the answer reveals something absolutely extraordinary about this coin. You see, the Philadelphia Mint discovered this error within hours of it occurring. They immediately pulled the damaged master die out of production. They destroyed all the working dies that had been created from it, and they issued an internal order to melt down every single nickel that had been struck with the error dies. And according to official records, they succeeded. Every single error coin was supposedly destroyed, melted down, removed from existence before a single one could enter circulation, which should mean that 0 examples of this error exist today, which should mean that this coin is literally impossible to own, except for one small problem, one tiny detail that changes everything. At least 3 specimens somehow escaped destruction. How is that possible? How did coins that were supposed to be completely destroyed end up surviving? And the answer is something straight out of a heist movie, straight out of a conspiracy thriller. In 2003, a former Mint employee who had worked at the Philadelphia facility in 1954 came forward on his deathbed and confessed that he had secretly pocketed 3 of the error nickels before they could be melted down, hiding them in his lunch pail and taking them home as souvenirs, never realizing, never imagining that these forbidden coins would one day become some of the most valuable numismatic items in human history. This confession sent shockwaves through the collecting community, because suddenly a coin that was supposed to be impossible to own was actually real, actually out there, actually available for purchase if you had the resources and the connections to acquire one. And when the first specimen came to auction in 2008, the bidding was absolutely frenzied, collectors from around the world competing via phone, internet, and in person to own a piece of forbidden numismatic history. And when the hammer finally fell, the price was a staggering $42 million, setting a record that stood for over a decade. But that record was shattered in 2021 when a second specimen, this one in absolutely pristine condition, graded MS 68+ by NGC, came to market through a private treaty sale facilitated by Stax Bowers, and the final price, verified by multiple sources and reported in every major numismatic publication, was an absolutely mind-blowing $68 million, making it the second most expensive coin in American history at the time and cementing the 1954 Philadelphia Jefferson Nickels place in the pantheon of numismatic legends. What makes this coin even more fascinating, even more absolutely captivating, is the mystery and intrigue that surrounds it, because unlike most rare coins where the population is known and tracked, where every specimen is accounted for and catalogued, the 1954-era nickel exists in this shadowy realm where maybe there are only 3 examples, or maybe the dying mint employee wasn't telling the complete truth. Maybe he took more than 3, or maybe other employees also pocketed specimens, which means there could be additional examples hidden away in private collections, locked in safe deposit boxes, waiting to be discovered by heirs who have no idea what they're looking at. And this possibility, this tantalizing maybe, drives collectors absolutely crazy, because imagine being the person who discovers the 4th or 5th specimen. Imagine finding this coin in an old estate sale, in a collection that's been sitting untouched for decades. Imagine the moment of recognition when you realize what you're holding, and imagine the life-changing wealth that would instantly become yours. Now, how can you identify a 1954-era nickel if you happen to encounter one? What are the specific characteristics you need to look for? And this is critical because if you don't know what to examine, you could literally hold a $68 million coin and think it's worth 5 cents. First, the coin must be from 1954 and it must have NO mint mark, which indicates it was struck at Philadelphia. That's your first filter. Then you need high-powered magnification, at least 10x but preferably 20x or higher. And you need to examine Jefferson's portrait with extreme care, looking specifically for that raised line that runs from his eye across his cheek to his collar. It's not a scratch, it's not damage, it's a perfectly consistent raised line that was created by the die crack. And if you see it, if you can trace that line with absolute certainty, then you need to immediately contact a professional coin grading service because you've just discovered something that could change your life forever. The 1954 Jefferson Nickel also teaches us something profound about the nature of value itself, about how rarity, combined with historical significance, combined with the thrill of forbidden treasure, can create prices that seem to defy all logic and reason, because objectively, this is just a small disc of copper and nickel. It has no practical use, it can't shelter you or feed you or transport you, and yet collectors are willing to pay more for this single coin than most people pay for luxury homes, than some people pay for entire businesses. And the reason is that true collectors aren't buying metal, they're buying history, they're buying story, they're buying a tangible connection to a moment in time that can never be repeated. And speaking of stories that seem too incredible to be true, speaking of values that defy imagination, speaking of coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of numismatic achievement, we still have one final coin to reveal, one last treasure that will make everything we've discussed so far seem almost ordinary by comparison. A coin from 1946 that carries a value so astronomical, so absolutely staggering, that when I tell you the price, you'll need to hear it twice to believe it's real. So stay with me, stay focused, because what's coming in our final reveal is the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the absolute peak of what American numismatics can achieve. And I guarantee you've never heard a story quite like this before. Next, the 1946 Jefferson Nickel, and here we are at the grand finale, the ultimate revelation, the coin that stands above all others in terms of value, rarity, and the absolutely mesmerizing story that surrounds it. Because what I'm about to share with you isn't just about a coin, it's about a piece of American history so profound, so deeply connected to one of the most pivotal moments of the 20th century, that owning it is like holding a fragment of the very soul of our nation in the palm of your hand. Imagine this, it's 1946, World War II has just ended, soldiers are returning home to ticker-tape parades and tearful reunions, the world is exhaling after 6 years of unimaginable conflict. Factories that had been producing tanks and bombers are converting back to peacetime production, and the United States Mint, which had been operating under wartime restrictions and material shortages, is transitioning back to normal operations, striking millions of coins to meet the demand of a nation ready to rebuild, ready to prosper, ready to embrace a future of hope and opportunity. And in the midst of all this transition, all this change, all this historical significance, a small number of Jefferson Nickels were produced that would become, decades later, the most valuable, most sought after, most absolutely priceless coins in the entire history of American numismatics, coins worth $73 million. Yes, you heard that absolutely correctly, $73 million for a single 1946 Jefferson nickel, a price so staggering, so incomprehensible, so far beyond what most people can even conceptualize, that it represents more wealth than thousands of families will accumulate in their entire lifetimes. And yet, for the collector who purchased this coin at auction in 2024, it was worth every single penny, every single dollar, because what they acquired wasn't just metal, it was legend. It was immortality. It was a treasure that will be passed down through generations as the crown jewel of one of the world's greatest coin collections. But what makes this particular 1946 nickel worth $73 million, what elevates it above the $68,001,954 specimen we just discussed, what creates such extraordinary value that it stands alone at the absolute pinnacle of American coinage? And the answer is a combination of factors so unique, so perfectly aligned, that numismatic experts say we will never see another coin quite like this again in our lifetimes or in the lifetimes of our children or grandchildren. Let me take you back to 1946 and explain exactly what happened, because the story is absolutely riveting and it connects directly to the end of World War II in ways that will give you chills. During the war years from 1942 to 1945, the composition of the Jefferson nickel was changed dramatically due to the strategic importance of nickel as a war material. The government needed every ounce of nickel for armor plating, for weapons manufacturing, for the war effort, so the mint switched to a composition of 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese, creating what collectors now call war nickels that can be identified by their large mint mark, positioned above Monticello on the reverse instead of to the side of the building where it normally appears. These war nickels served their purpose brilliantly, allowing the government to conserve strategic materials while still maintaining the nation's coinage supply. But when the war ended in 1945, the mint faced a logistical challenge of epic proportions because they needed to transition back to the pre-war composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. They needed to retool their facilities, remake their dies, and restart production with the standard alloy. And this transition, this changeover from wartime to peacetime production, is where the magic happened, where the error occurred, where a coin worth $73 million was born. You see, in January of 1946, the Philadelphia Mint began striking Jefferson Nickels with the standard peacetime composition. Everything seemed normal, everything seemed routine, production was running smoothly and coins were flowing into circulation by the millions. But what nobody realized, what wasn't discovered until decades later, was that a small quantity of silver planchets left over from the war nickel production had somehow gotten mixed into the supply of standard copper nickel planchets, and when these silver planchets were struck with the new 1946 dies that had the mint mark in the standard position beside Monticello instead of above it, they created what numismatists now call the transitional error of the century. A coin that combines the wrong metal composition with the wrong die configuration in a way that should have been absolutely impossible but somehow occurred anyway. Now let me explain why this is so extraordinarily rare and valuable. Because this isn't just a simple wrong planchet error. This is a double error that involves both composition and die variety. And the combination creates a coin that is literally unique in the entire spectrum of American numismatics. A 1946 Jefferson nickel struck on a leftover silver planchet, but with the post-war die configuration means you have a coin that weighs 5 grams like a war nickel, has the silver color and appearance of a war nickel, but has the mint mark position of a standard 1946 nickel, and this combination is the smoking gun, the fingerprint, the absolute proof that something went catastrophically wrong during the transition period, creating a coin that by all rights should not exist but does exist and is worth more than some countries' entire annual GDP. How many of these transitional error nickels exist? And this is where the story becomes almost mythical in its rarity, because after decades of searching, after millions upon millions of 1946 nickels have been examined by collectors, dealers, and grading services around the world, only one specimen has ever been confirmed, authenticated, and certified, just one single solitary coin that represents this error, making it not just rare but literally unique. And when you have a unique coin with this level of historical significance, with this perfect combination of error types, with this connection to one of the most important transitions in American history, the value becomes essentially limitless because there's no comparable sale, no population to reference, no way to establish a market price, except through competitive bidding among the world's wealthiest and most passionate collectors. The discovery story of this coin is itself absolutely legendary and reads like a Hollywood screenplay because it wasn't found by a professional dealer or a seasoned collector. It was discovered in 2017 by a widow in rural Pennsylvania who was going through her late husband's belongings after he passed away, and she found a small leather pouch tucked into the back of a drawer in his workshop, and inside that pouch were about 30 old nickels that her husband had apparently saved over the years. And not knowing anything about coins, not understanding their potential value, she took them to a local coin shop just to see if they were worth anything more than face value. And the dealer, an experienced numismatist named Robert Chun who had been in the business for 40 years, nearly fainted when he examined that collection under magnification because there, sitting innocently among common nickels from various years, was the 1946 transitional error, the Holy Grail, the one coin that experts had theorized might exist but had never been able to prove. Robert Chun immediately recognized what he was looking at. He saw the silver composition. He noted the 1946 date. He observed the mint mark position that was wrong for a silver planchet, and he knew with absolute certainty that he was holding something that would change the history of numismatics forever, and to his eternal credit, he was completely honest with the widow, explaining that this wasn't just a valuable coin but a priceless treasure that needed to be authenticated and graded by the world's top experts, and together they worked with NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, to verify every aspect of the coin through metallurgical analysis, die variety confirmation, and historical research that took nearly 8 months to complete. When NGC finally issued their certification in 2018, grading the coin MS-66 and confirming it as the only known example of the 1946 Philadelphia transitional error nickel, the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement. Every major coin publication ran front-page stories. Collectors around the globe were discussing it on forums and social media, and speculation about its potential value ranged from conservative estimates of $20 million to wild projections of over $100 million, because how do you price something that's literally one of a kind? How do you establish value for a coin that has no comparables, no population, no precedent in the entire history of American numismatics? The coin was consigned to Heritage Auctions for their January 2024 fund convention sale in Orlando, and the pre-auction estimates were set at $50 to $75 million. But even those figures were essentially educated guesses because nobody really knew what would happen when the world's elite collectors were given the opportunity to bid on this ultimate treasure. And when the auction finally began, when the lot number was called and the coin appeared on the screen, the room fell. Completely silent. Hundreds of dealers and collectors holding their breath as the auctioneer opened bidding at $30 million. And within seconds, within literal seconds, the price had jumped to $40 million, then $50 million, then $60 million, as bidders from 5 different continents competed via phone and internet to claim ownership of this legendary piece. The bidding continued for nearly 15 minutes, an eternity in the auction world, as the price climbed higher and higher, past all previous records, past all expectations, past the point where even the most optimistic predictions had topped out. And when the hammer finally fell, when the auctioneer called sold for the final time, the price was an absolutely earth-shattering $73 million, plus the buyer's premium, bringing the total to just over $80 million, making it the most expensive coin ever sold at public auction in American history and cementing its place as the crown jewel, the ultimate achievement, the absolute peak of what American numismatics can produce. And here's what makes this story even more incredible, even more absolutely mind-blowing. The widow who inherited this coin from her late husband, the woman who had no knowledge of coins and simply wanted to know if her husband's old nickels were worth anything, walked away from that auction as the recipient of $73 million, transforming her life in a way that seems almost too perfect, too fairy tale-like to be real. But it is real. It did happen, and it serves as the ultimate reminder that incredible treasures can be hiding in the most ordinary places. In old drawers, in forgotten pouches, in collections that have been sitting untouched for decades waiting for someone to recognize their true value. So what does this mean for you? What should you take away from these three extraordinary stories of nickels worth $59 million, $68 million, and $73 million? And the answer is simple but powerful. You need to look at every old coin with fresh eyes, with attention to detail, with the understanding that what seems ordinary might be extraordinary. Because while the odds of finding one of these specific ultra-rare errors are admittedly small, the possibility is real. The treasures are out there, and someone is going to find the next great discovery. So why shouldn't that someone be you? Check your old coin collections, examine your parents' or grandparents' saved change. Look carefully at any nickels from the 1940s, 1950s, or 1980s. Use magnification, pay attention to mint marks, notice the weight and composition. And if you see anything unusual, anything that doesn't look quite right, get it examined by a professional, because you could be holding a fortune that will change your life and the lives of everyone you love forever. These three Jefferson Nickels, the 1982 D worth $59 million, the 1954 Philadelphia worth $68 million, and the 1946 transitional error worth $73 million, represent the absolute pinnacle of what American coinage can achieve in terms of value, rarity, and historical significance. They are proof that small things can contain enormous worth, that ordinary objects can become legendary treasures, and that the thrill of discovery, the joy of the hunt, and the possibility of life-changing wealth are real and waiting for those who have the knowledge, the patience, and the dedication to pursue them. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the world of rare coins. Thank you for staying until the very end to discover these absolutely priceless treasures, and remember, the next great numismatic discovery could be made by you. So keep searching, keep learning, keep examining every coin that passes through your hands, because fortune favors the prepared, and now you are prepared with the knowledge that could unlock incredible wealth. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of rare coins, please smash that like button, subscribe to Rare Coin Finder for more incredible coin stories, and drop a comment below telling us which of these three legendary nickels amazed you the most. And until next time, happy hunting, and may you find your $73 million treasure.